Welcome to this task on the stages of design and implementation of databases. There are a series of steps that you must go through when creating and using a database. You've got to create a good design, you've got to create the database itself, you've got to populate it with dummy data, and then you've got to write and test the SQL that you're going to use to get the information in and out. You can only let the users loose on your database when all these stages have been shown to work. There are 4 stages that are needed for every good database implementation. It has to be designed in a way that will allow the programming languages of databases, the structured query language, to work correctly. A good design will make extracting the data easier, save space, and make tracking the inevitable errors a lot easier. Having designed the database, it should then be created correctly. Next, the database needs to be filled with dummy data, so at the final stage the testing and SQL can happen. Well, the first stage is designing the database. Poorly designed databases lead to all sorts of problems. The best case is that you make yourself a lot of work and it runs slowly. In the worst case, you can't get at the data, and that means that a good design is crucial for any real application. A well-designed database is one where you minimize the amount of work you have to do afterwards. The first run through these 4 stages will throw up problems that you couldn't imagine when you started the project. Making mistakes at this stage is not worrying. Having mistakes that you couldn't find by working through these 4 stages when the system goes live is a far bigger problem. That's an issue that really will come back to haunt you. People expect that because databases live in the world of computing, that there'll be rules that you can apply to create the perfect database design. There are rules, but the overview is much more of an art than a science. It's your view of the system, your view of what the words really mean, etc., that will drive your design. Don't be put off by having to rethink things. That's part of the process. Everybody has to rethink what they're doing. And when you do this, you'll probably be using Lucidchart to create the design, and that will make your life a lot easier. The second stage is creating the database itself. Using a tool like Lucidchart will allow you to generate all the SQL needed to create the tables and fields in your database. This saves a lot of time and means fewer errors too. So database design tools should be your best friend. You just select your database management system from the list presented, copy the code given to you, and then run that code in your database management system. However, at this stage, some people will then start to say, right, we'll put real data in. That's never a good idea. You populate the database with dummy data. Putting in a few records into each table to check that your SQL is working is wildly optimistic. You won't be able to check all eventualities, and will therefore miss the chance to spot that main query, the one on which all the users depend, only works if only one result is returned. What you need is hundreds of records in each table, but typing in those would take far too long. The best bet is to use a data generation site. Sites such as generatedata.com or mockaroo.com allow you to generate a reasonable quantity of data. These sites allow you to create data which can be fed into your application for testing. This is a skill that you will need in the real world. You can then delete all the test data once you've tested your SQL application, knowing that everything works before it goes live. The final stage is querying the database. This is the bit that most people worry about. It takes time and effort to get familiar with SQL, something that's true of all programming languages. But it's much smaller than most, and there are only 7 commands in SQL. People who can handle SQL tend to do rather well in the job market. It's therefore worth the effort getting to know how it works. Most people who've met SQL before have seen insert or select. However, not only is there much more to select than is generally taught, there are also a number of other useful toys which you can use as a database expert. There are three kinds of SQL commands. The data definition language, sometimes abbreviated to DDL, which is used to create databases, tables and fields. The database manipulation language, which gets abbreviated to DML, and is used to work with the records themselves. And the data control language, DCL, where you can set up users or give or take away privileges.